Welcome back. This is Talk. Let's talk about what's been going on in the United States in LA. California's governor calls for an independent investigation into how water shortages have impaired the fight against the LA area wildfires. There was also a nighttime curfew taking place in Pacific Palisades and Eaton. Caroline can talk us through those areas. And some despicable looting going on. At least 11 people have now been killed in the fires so far. It's estimated 10,000 homes and other structures have been destroyed. President Joe Biden describes LA as a war scene, whilst warning the death toll is likely to increase. The forecast is for more strong winds. That's raising fears that the blazes could spread even further. Joining us now is Caroline Feraday, friend of this programme who lives in LA. Good morning, Caroline.
Yeah, what a week it has been. Well, I don't even know where to begin.
Well, I know, I totally agree. And having lived there, as you know, for a long period of time, I mean, I looked at those pictures. I don't recognise anything. I mean, it is a scene of abject horror, desolation. It's something out of a movie.
Well, I wish it was something out of a movie.
Well, quite.
And I think, like, the scale of it is hard to comprehend. When we're talking about, that's a picture that a friend of mine took this evening. So that's the way that's looking at the moment from the Valley. The Valley, if you are not as familiar with Los Angeles as perhaps David and I are, so there's kind of LA's a very sort of strange layout and huge, but the Valley is the bit that kind of goes from Studio City and kind of out, and it's really the place where people live, families live, sort of the more affordable parts. There's a lot of people live in that area. She lives there with her two little boys, and that was the picture from her home, where you can imagine how terrifying that is. These are pictures now from Palisades, and when you're talking about that area of Palisades, maybe you can get your head around, oh, okay, like a couple of, a little village or something. That's not what this is. With that fire, the Palisades fire, and the area it's covering right now is twice the size of Manhattan. Yeah. Just to make it really clear. That's and also, if all of Brighton and Hove was ablaze.
And just to give you perspective on this, these are significant structures. These are big family homes, as you say. Look, absolutely razed to the ground.
Yeah, absolutely nothing left. I mean, it is just unthinkable. And I mean, I know that you're familiar with the footage of the panic of people trying to get out, of the devastation. It's just been, and everybody here, counting our blessings, but obviously in that state of panic, there was another fire. The thing is that even if people keep saying, are you safe, yes, but all these other fires keep starting. So another fire started, the Kenneth fire started near to where I live. So we all got evacuated out. On top of that, there's been 3 occasions where the emergency evacuation alarm has gone off for everybody in LA County. That was a fault. Yeah. So we're all living on the edge, and then it keeps telling us to evacuate, and then going, oh, no, sorry, didn't mean it.
Well, so the officials
that's
have
not helping anyone.
No, and the officials have apologised after this second erroneous alert message was sent out, as you say, to everyone's phones.
At 4 a.m, David, at 4 a.m.
I mean, look at these pictures. I mean, horrific. And just so people understand what they're looking at, this normally is very well heeled, well manicured with trees, and as you can see, it's a grid of roads, and there's nothing.
Yeah, it's unthinkable, really. And the same, actually, so there's the Eaton fire. The Eaton fire, to put that in perspective, is about the size of Northampton. So we've got all these big fires going on at the moment. I can still see the smoke from the Kenneth fire, the West Hills one. But what they do is try and get these fire lines in. So what happened early on when these started, it was really like a big old blowtorch, because the winds were so hot and fast and dry. So those Santa Ana winds, that everyone's been talking about, they pull all the moisture out the air. And LA is already incredibly dry. It hasn't rained since May. And so these very dry, fast-moving winds just fan these flames, and you get this awful firestorm where you just don't stand a chance if it goes through. And then, you know, often, you know, we talk about wildfires in California, and they are in areas that are a little bit more rural, where it's maybe like a brush that's burning. This is people's homes, and thousands of them, as well as supermarkets, Starbucks, you know, you name it. These wonderful little restaurants all along Pacific Coast Highway. Yes, some of the fancy ones, but some of them are like, you know, just a lovely fish shack, you know, that's been there for 36 years. That's just a really lovely piece of character along there. And, you know, it is hard to imagine that life will ever be the same. My car is still packed. I'm actually back home. I'm glad. Well, we got evacuated. Took me an hour and 40 minutes to do a journey that would take me 20 minutes normally, because everybody was going. And then by the time I got there, they were like, "Oh, you can go back in." And I thought, well, I'm here now. So I stayed the night. But I am now back home. But I mean, it's still burning down the road.
But so there were 200,000 people or thereabouts under evacuation orders, and another 200 and so thousand who were warned they would have to evacuate. You're talking 500,000 people or thereabouts. I mean, just the scale of this. What was it like? I mean, you must have been absolutely terrified.
Yeah, it's horrible. On top of that, for days and days and days, they've now got it down to about 170,000 people, but it was about 300, 400,000 people that did not have power for days and days. And some of those people still don't. And when you try and, I mean, these fires are still burning. That moment that their biggest task is to try and get that fire out. And there's now this evacuation zone. I was looking at it and I happen to know where Kamala Harris's house is, and it covers that area and then goes out to where the Getty Museum is. That's in the evacuation area. So all of that, this huge area is currently, there's all these new evacuations. So if you might have in your mind that this is over and happened earlier this week, it's not. It is very much not over. It is really active. What they're trying to do, and I'm sort of keeping half an eye on it, because they can now get this air cover up, that when they had those very fast moving winds, they just didn't stand a chance of being able to get the air cover in. And we've got a few kind of funky aircraft that if you see them, it's so impressive. They scoop seawater up literally into the belly of the airplane and go and dump it on and so they get this big amount of water on. And then these very skilled helicopter pilots, I've been up with them before, they're incredible. And they are scooping water out of the reservoir in Encino. But that does lead us to talk about the water problems with Palisades and the problems there. Firstly, there's a reservoir in Palisades. It was not operational. It was being repaired. So there was this big expanse of water that already they couldn't access. Those fire hydrants, they're designed, if you have a fire in your house, if your kitchen catches fire, it's designed that you call 911 and they come and they spray it with water and you're done. To fight a fire on that scale with only hydrants was impossible. It's just impossible to even fathom, because they had no air support. And normally, in fact, this evening, about every 20 minutes, I hear one go across where they're scooping up with a helicopter. So they're working so hard now from the air, and that is where they really do manage to get some sort of impact on these fires. They've put a big long line of retardant down, this like red retardant that kind of makes a barrier line, and then I can see this like hundreds of firefighters all in a row, and that's the sort of at the fire line, and they're hoping they can sort of hold it there. And the winds have dropped at the moment. Now, in a couple of hours, those winds are due to take up again, and over the weekend, and then Tuesday is another day where it's going to be incredibly windy. So they want to get ahead of these fires by then. It's not going to be helped. People keep starting them, obviously.
Well, we need to take a break. We'll talk about that and the arson attempts that people have stopped people actually setting fire to other parts. Just very quickly before the break, The other thing that that surprised me, because I would imagine these would happen, as you say, the brush fires in those outer lying areas, particularly where you talked about in Palisades. But the fact that it encroached on Hollywood Boulevard, on Sunset Boulevard, where I used to live down into West Hollywood,
yeah,
that's unprecedented. Where you were, where we both were, it's unprecedented.
Yeah, extraordinary and very scary, very impressive to watch them put it out. And I, when they get to the point where there are some answers about how those fires started, I would like to hear them, because I don't know how that one will have started. Yeah. But just terrifying where that was, so central, right behind Hollywood Boulevard, near so many homes.
Caroline, you sent me an article last night talking about something that I don't think I'd really considered. The fact is that you've got man-made materials combusting, and therefore the particulate material in the air, the air quality is so bad because you've got these tiny particles, these microns, these nanoparticles, which are being inhaled. And of course, the real risk to people is not just the fires themselves, but also the health ramifications later on.
Yeah, I mean, you breathe this stuff in and 20 years down the line, you're going to find yourself with some sort of respiratory illness. So on top of everything else that's going on, where people are being evacuated from their homes, those that are lucky enough not to, they are, we're back. It's almost like COVID times, to be honest with you. The kids aren't in school, and we're back wearing masks here, this time for very good reason, so that we're not inhaling this particulate matter into our lungs when we're out and about. And yeah, so the air quality is incredibly poor. There's some issues with the water in some areas. In some areas, they're saying you have to boil your water and various other things. And also just that question, David, you think in your head, what will I pack? What will I take? But when you're actually faced with that question
so Duncan was just,
what do I take?
Well, Duncan was saying exactly that to me. I mean, what went through your mind?
I made a choice that anything that was fairly easy to replace and didn't have sentimental value didn't matter. So if it was like clothing, I was like, look, I'll go to TJ Maxx or whatever and just go and get something else. Yeah. Right? So like, I'm not going to think about those things. And then there's things you can't replace. So I took some like drawings my daughter had made. As I pointed out to someone earlier, I managed to take my signed Dolly Parton picture, but not my phone charger.
Yeah.
But you can get a phone charger anyway, can't you? You can't get Dolly Parton anywhere.
You can't.
And like my, sentimental things, so things that belong to my grandmother that were important, or things that my daughter had done. But you obviously cannot take everything, and you just have to decide you're going to be selective. And there were a couple of photo albums that I grabbed. I have tried to digitalize a lot of my old photos, because it used in the old days, you lost your photos, they were gone. But there were some things like that I took, and like a couple of things. But it's really silly little things. Like every holiday that I've been on, those little fridge magnets you get from all around the world for like 20, 30 years that, there's no way you're packing those and taking those. Just little memories that I would find very, very hard. But I mean, I went to the animal shelter, because if you're evacuated out of your house, it is not all so easy to find somewhere where can also accommodate your pets, your dogs. I met a lady, she had 2 cats, a dog, and 2 pigs, 2 little mini pigs. And she's like, I don't, and she was so relieved when she found out the shelter would just take them for the time being, and that they'd be safe, bless her, just being separated. Your pets are your family members, aren't they? So so everybody's split up, everybody's in someone's spare room or a hotel or, goodness knows where.
Yeah, I think...
Or a Red Cross shelter, actually. The Red Cross have been absolutely amazing.
Good to hear. I mean, the other thing that I think is very apparent is that money is no barrier to this. I saw that video from Paris Hilton. She has no house left at all. And, of course, if you have money, it means that you can check into the Beverly Hills Hotel or whatever, which is what they're all doing. But at the end of the day, they've lost everything as well. So money really didn't protect anyone at all.
No, it didn't. There's one house. There's some guy.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and he had built his house with like a fire retardant roof. And I think going forward, there definitely need to be conversations about what the building regulations are and standards are somewhere, where if something as simple as having a fire retardant roof would have saved people's homes, then that seems to be something that should be a requirement. There are a lot of requirements with like clearing brush and this something, but what difference would that have made?
None.
But yes, no, it's a great equalizer, isn't it? Because yes, they can go and stay in a lovely hotel, but you know, it doesn't make any difference ultimately. Although, you know, I think there can be a lack of sympathy when it is big celebrities and famous people. The majority of people who have lost their homes are not millionaires with amazing homes. They are regular folks who have lost every single thing. And a lot of them, David, had their insurance cancelled because all the insurance companies cancelled the insurance. So they really are up the old creek.
I mean, just in terms of the claims to the insurers, I mean, it's off the scale. The political blame game has started. Donald Trump, Elon Musk wading into this. Of course, they've attacked Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, talking about they should have had redistribution of water from Northern California to Southern California, and so on. I'm not sure this is the time for political attacks.
No, it absolutely is not. And I mean, my concern, I know what you'll say, but my concern is really what happens if or when this happens, once it's, as it is soon to be on Donald Trump's watch. Is he going to then be motivated to make a political point and not help people in California because, you know, it is a Democratic state and hates the governor. So that is something that is something to consider going forward. But yeah, we've had a lot of federal aid for now. And a lot of, you know, sort of help. The National Guard have come. You were talking about the looting. We've got the National Guard here trying to help with the looting, and there's a curfew. I mean, the idea that people would loot, but then the idea that people would deliberately start a fire. Oh, let me tell you about that. So,
very quickly.
Yeah, I will be, but it's good. My friend, that video that's doing the rounds, I park my car there all the time because my friend lives opposite up a big hill. And so that was her neighbour who tackled him. He's a guy called Peter.
Just very quickly, so there seems to be this guy who is intent on lighting another fire.
Yeah, so he had what appears to be a blowtorch. My friend's neighbour tackled him in the street. That is the guy in the video tackling him. The police came and arrested him. But of course, it's a bit like if you arrest somebody with a gun and they haven't shot anyone, they can't charge him with arson when he didn't set fire to anything. So he's not been charged with arson. But they have got him on something else and he is in jail. But it's like a kind of odd, you know, one of those odd ones where they figure it out.
Well, look, Caroline...
Anyway, I'm all a bit close to home.
Well, I was going to say, look, I'm ever so pleased you're okay. To all of you, to all my friends over there, send my best wishes. I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely dreadful. And stay safe, please. Caroline Feraday there, reporting from LA. Friend of the programme, friend of mine. I mean, Duncan, it's just... I mean, it's actually unfathomable. And then, of course, I never got on to talking about what we just mentioned there, benzene, mercury, all of these organic compounds which are now volatile. They're airborne. There are huge health implications for people.
Massively. What I thought Caroline did brilliantly there was describe what it was like having to make that almost split-second decision about, I'm going to leave. What do I take? I mean, you can't even begin, I don't think, to imagine what that's actually like. And that's the human element of this story, because I think we see the pictures and we go... the other thing that Caroline said, which I thought was brilliant, it actually puts it into context, because we see the pictures, and we saw them on Talk earlier, and we see them elsewhere on news channels, and you think, how big is this? How far is it? But when you consider it's like the whole of Brighton and Hove being on fire, which is what she said, you go, oh, I can visualise that. That is just shocking. It's mind-blowing.
It is absolutely mind-blowing. It's a huge geographical area. We'll bring you more on that as and when we get it.